We discussed earlier the idea that people going into politics should go in with noble intentions, and I believe you have an announcement to make in that area. I'm wondering if maybe for our audience.
Yes, Ben, I've decided to stand for the vacant seat in the Dublin University by-election, and again, I'm not standing to create a career for myself. I'm standing because I want to essentially use my experience to hold the government to account, and also to bring a point of view which is essentially that I do not want Ireland's sovereignty to be further eroded unless there's a very, very good reason for it. And I don't think the electorate ever really get that choice when it comes to. And the third reason is that I want to keep the government or their supporters their hands off the university seats, because they were established as seats where people who wouldn't normally be elected in the Dáil could stand. And if the political parties or their surrogates take it over, there's no point in university seats.
So you say you want to retain Irish sovereignty, by which I presume you mean the European Union. I know you're a known Eurosceptic. So it's my job to try and poke holes and find angles that the audience might be asking. So do you not think that a Trinity electorate or a Dublin University electorate would be quite pro-EU? And I mean, what do you think of running on a platform like that in this type of a constituency?
Well, I'm very pro-European, but I'm anti-federalist state, and I think that's much more popular than people say. I believe the Trinity electors, which are brilliant people, of course, since I'm appealing to them, are an intelligent bunch. But, you know, I have rarely met people who are in favour of further and further diminutions of our sovereignty. I mean, the way we're going, it seems to be that, you know, our Oireachtas, our democratic institutions, will end up as county councils, not deciding anything of major import. And if you watch some of the Dáil debates, the standard, and it's not so much in the Senate, but the Dáil debate, the standard is pathetic. And they're not discussing anything that of major significance a lot of the time, because most of the decisions have been taken by an unelected group in Brussels. Now, I was quite content with a European Economic Community, which we were in before, and I believe very strongly in cooperation, often social cooperation and economic cooperation. But I do not want to see our hard-won independence thrown away. It's as simple as that.
So why did you choose the Seanad to run? I mean, I know there's a vacancy, obviously, but I suppose the question that some people might be asking is why now and why this election? I mean, potentially there was the election last year for the Dáil. You know, there's been other opportunities. So why this moment and why this seat, do you think?
Well, I did think of running the Seanad the last time, because I think, you know, I'm not trying to create a career for myself. And if I stood at being independent, what I was looking for is a platform to scrutinise legislation and to speak and to raise ideas. And the Seanad is an ideal place for that. It's also the electorate. The electorate is essentially dispersed around the world. I spend a lot of my time abroad, and I would have a lot of contacts and friends in places like America, the United States, Britain, Australia, Canada. And I felt that, you know, I would like to speak on behalf or help the Irish diaspora. I spent a lot of time on that area, and I'm delighted that Senator Billy Lawless, who is the first diaspora senator, is backing my campaign. And that was the reason I picked the Seanad. It was also the opportunity, Ben. And I think I'd have a better chance in the Seanad than I would in a huge crowded election in Dublin West, where I'd be up against Leo Varadkar. Maybe I'll take him on later.
Absolutely. You actually, before this interview, you were showing me a list of some of the people who have endorsed you, and it was a lot of quite prestigious people. I was actually kind of surprised. Who were some of the examples again? You named Billy Lawless, was it?
Senator Billy Lawless, and because when I was in charge of the Irish government's policy towards the diaspora, so I got to know a lot of people abroad, including Billy, well before he became a senator. I've got General John de Chastelain. I'm very proud of getting General John de Chastelain, because John became a good friend, but John probably, of the outsiders, probably the most influential outsider. He co-chaired the talks, and remember, he was head of the decommissioning body which removed paramilitary weapons from the North, and everybody in the North has huge respect for him. I've also got Christy Cooney, Christie is former President Uachtaráin of the GAA, and because sometimes people misunderstand when I say that we should have treated Brexit differently and we should maintain our relations with the United Kingdom. It doesn't mean that I'm any less of a patriot than anyone else. And I think having people like Christy Cooney, also delighted to have Cormac Lucy, and of course my good friend Tim Pat Coogan, who's easily the most successful non-fiction writer in Ireland. I've got people right across the spectrum. Bruce Arnold, who would certainly be completely different from Tim Pat Coogan. But one other person who was very important to me was Loyola Hearn. Loyola was a former Conservative minister in the Canadian government, but he was also ambassador to Ireland. And the two of us got together during the bailout, and we went to the governments, and we managed to get 10,000 visas for young Irish people, many of them who would have gone to Trinity as a 2-year visas, rather than seeing people languish on the dole during the bailout here, to open Canada for them. And Loyola played an absolute blinder on that. I'm delighted to have his support. There's a whole series of other, Tim McTiernan. I've got academics in it as well, and some journalists and various things. I have shied away from active politicians because one thing I'm going to be my own person. So every piece of legislation, every resolution, I will look at it on its merits. I won't be told by a party headquarters how to vote, and I'll vote on my conscience.
That seems like something that you emphasize quite a bit in previous instances where I've spoken to you, where you'll be happy to speak at a conservative or right-leaning event on Monday and then a communist event on Tuesday, and you'll talk to anyone, consider anything, yes, not tied down by allegiances to this group or that group.
Well, I carry my message, my basic message, which is I want to keep Ireland, I want to keep democratic control in Ireland. I spoke at the Conservative Party conference in 2018 in the British Conservative Party in Manchester. I've spoken at the Irish Freedom Party's conference. I've spoken at the Communist Party group in Belfast. I've spoken with Sinn Féin. I've spoken with Fianna Fáil. I'll speak with everybody because, when I was working on the peace process, we had some fairly disastrous periods, particularly when people like John Bruton came in and said, you can't talk to this, you can't talk to that. And, it really retarded the discussions. So when Bertie Ahern came in, he said, go and talk to everybody. Bring your message over. And I'm never afraid to discuss my message because I'm confident in my message. I don't have to hide from any group or feel intimidated by them. I will argue my message. And I say the same thing in the same places. So I'm not, tailoring my message for one or the other. I speak all the time about the need for Ireland to maintain democratic control of our future. I think, when I started the campaign, I thought it was a long shot in the dark. I am simply amazed by the amount of support I've got, as I say, right across the spectrum. And I think there is a need for, much more fundamental debate in this country about serious issues and about bringing the Oireachtas back to the centre of the debate, not sort of, turn it on almost like Frank's Pictorial Weekly to have a laugh at it. Let's have serious debates about it. And I mean, the Sapone case brought some of that back because it did bring the Oireachtas back at the centre. So I'm hopeful. I'm much more hopeful now than I was at the very start.